starting things off with Rings of Power. It's so weird to not start off with a character profile. It feels so weird to get right into meat and potatoes. But here we go. Let's fucking do it.
Oh, I mean, I'm off the rip. I have a few things to say, but off the
Okay.
rip, I would say season 2 as a whole much better than season 1.
Yes, I think that is a absolutely fair um, analysis.
I feel there was a lot of things in season 1 that I feel like they addressed. And then I would also say like the highlight of this season, like in season 1 we had Durin and Elrond was kind of like the highlight of season 1. I would very much say that it was Anatar and Celebrimbor this time, like the
I
highlight
completely agree.
storyline. Um, there's some things I think they could have improved on this season. Other than like story gripes, I think I said it a few times, but there seemed like no sense of scale throughout this season. And I do think that was kind of like the biggest issue at times, especially when
Yeah.
you're dealing with like whole cities of like Eregion and we see 20 elves, or the whole of Numenor crowning the new king and there's 40 people in a room.
Yeah. Especially when pre-season they were talking about how many people they got to come up and dress up as orcs for the
Yeah,
battle of the
Eregion.
city. Yeah, Eregion. Um like that, you see that, you're like, oh, okay, they're understanding
Yeah,
scale here. They want stuff to be big, and then it's like, oh no, we just got loads of orcs. Don't worry about elves or dwarves or anything else.
I I actually think most of those like mass amounts of orcs were used on that scene where the elves are riding up on horses and they've got the full like orc army. It's like at that point it was like, oh cool, two big armies. We never saw it in that sense of scale again,
No,
which I do think let it down. And hopefully, like they improve for season 2. Hopefully, maybe season 3 they improve on those things.
I think that's absolutely fair to say. Yeah.
But let's get into the actual finale episode. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna go right into the whole wizard stuff
Cool,
because
that's fine.
that's
What we'll do is we'll wrap up storylines rather than
yeah,
chronological order.
that's fine.
Um,
I'll be honest. I've said it for most of this season. I really hoped it wasn't Gandalf. Uh, personally, I'm a little disappointed that they went Gandalf because I feel like it's just a cop out to use Gandalf, as in like easy fan service. Oh, people will love it. Don't get me wrong. For the story that they've told and the way they've been telling this story, it does make sense in this story for this to be Gandalf. Like I'm not saying that it was badly told. I just wish it wasn't Gandalf.
I
And
don't
that's
think he did a
just
bad job. I just don't like the direction, which is always a fair thing to have.
yeah.
It's always completely fair to go. I get why you did it, but I'm not a fan of that. That is always fair.
And let me paint the picture, right? As soon as they said Grand Elf, I went, oh, fuck's sake. Like I genuinely just paused. I paused the episode and went, it's gonna be fucking Gandalf.
I was sat here, and as they said that as well, I audibly said, empty flat to myself, oh, Hori's gonna be pissed.
Do you know what's worse though? I was then like, ah, oh, maybe it's a red herring. The copium instantly set in. I was like, maybe it's a red herring. Maybe they're just doing this because everyone's expecting it to be. And then they kept saying Grand Elf, and I was like, okay, how many times are you gonna fucking say it before you just say
What I will say, obviously, I don't know too much, but when there's the interaction between the Dark Elf and
mm,
Gandalf, I really did think the way they were interacting with each other was like, I'm not bad, I just want to stop Sauron. I was like, oh, maybe Corey was right. Maybe it is like the Blue Wizards and their job was to stop Sauron, and then they just went different directions with it. Maybe he's absolutely nailed the call there back in episode 3 or whenever it was, and then they said Gandalf, Grandalf, and I was like, oh, Corey's going to be very upset.
yeah. So like there was still the chance that I was like, okay, this could be Blue Wizards. Because he talks about like he persuaded him, and there's all this like discussion of like he's been waiting for him. And then obviously they said Grand Elf. Now I will say, um, we're gonna obviously have to wait a whole nother fucking season before we find out who the evil wizard is. That seems to be the trend here. Introduce wizard in a season.
Surely it's Sauron,
Next,
right?
I no, I don't want it. Like, here's I can see why Gandalf was Gandalf. That, like, the story, fundamentally, the story makes sense for him to be Gandalf, and it's not an issue.
If
If
it's
they
not
make
Sauron, who could it be though?
it could still be a blue wizard because of, partly because his like henchmen guys he'd hired, who he then turned on, all had like blue paint on him. So it's like
Okay.
there's that notion of blue there in his little faction. He did have a cult like the Blue Wizards had in the original version. My issue is, like, if they make him Saruman, I would actually genuinely be pissed off because it sets up an issue of Saruman and Gandalf are meant to be like closely on the same side, both there to do the right thing, and then he gets corrupted, and that's why Saruman turns to Sauron. If he's already showing some evil tendencies, like dropping rocks on harmless hobbits and kind of running a cult, it kind of ruins that whole idea that, like, oh my god, he's gone corrupt. He's now on Sauron. Like, you go, oh yeah, well, of course he was evil from the start. Like, it ruins that whole character development into that stage.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
But, like, obviously the way that Amazon's doing it, we'll only get to know his name at the end of next season because it takes
Yeah.
2 seasons to reveal a name.
Absolutely. Well, how dare you want to know the character's name sooner than that?
I will say, my personal disappointment for it being Gandalf. Well, I feel a little bad for the actor, right?
Okay.
Because you are now in a position where the fandom, already a lot of the fandom are very judgmental of this show. They are now going to go, you're not as good as Gandalf as Ian McKellen. This doesn't make sense because Ian McKellen did this in Lord of the Rings. Everything's going to be overanalyzed. And on top of that, we still have Ian McKellen playing Gandalf. So we are in a timeline now where we have 2 actors playing 2 versions of Gandalf, one that is beloved and one that is now going to be like scrutinized. And as an actor, I would hate to be in that position.
Yes, that unfortunately, and we've said this before, this notion that only one actor can play a role is so harming towards these big IPs that we love, and it's going to get to the point where it actually stops these kind of projects getting made, even if they are good, because they're just going to be like, well, we can't cast this character, this character, this character, this character, because someone did a good job as them 30 fucking years ago, and everyone will just go, oh, they weren't as good as this person.
I think it's like, it's one thing if Ian McKellen had already stopped playing the role of Gandalf and wasn't going to touch that. But the fact that we know recently he said he wants to keep playing him, it's a very tough situation.
They do a little time jump for season 3 and to bring in McKellen in.
Imagine.
I'd feel worse for the actor in that
Yeah.
situation.
All that set up to then just be
role,
chucked out.
And then they just like, yeah, rip.
I will say, with the wizard and like Tom Bombadil, I really enjoyed the final scene with Tom. Although there was a moment where he was saying Grandalf, and I was like, just fucking say the name. Go on, you're gonna say it.
It had, you know, the meme at the end of the Fantastic Four movie, the most recent shitty reboot, where he's like, we're gonna need a team name.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, fantastic. He's like, what did you just say? And then it cuts.
It
literally was that kind of shit. It's like, oh, come on.
I was like, just fuck. I was just like,
out where this is going.
Yeah. I was just like, just fucking say the name already and ruin my day.
Comment down below if you were the one imbecile who was genuinely shocked when he said Gandalf.
Oh,
let me know.
Surely not. But I really enjoyed Tom, and like that whole little song at the end with them 2 singing it, I thought was a really good way to end the season.
Yeah.
I'm happy, but goodbye, hobbits. I'm like, they served their purpose. They're done. We don't need them anymore, personally.
Yeah. I think you could give them a skip for season 3 to just allow a little time to go, and then season 4 kind of start the process of them finding the Shire, because I think that'd be a cool thing for people to find. I don't know how far off timeline we are for that, but we
Uh,
also know we're going a little fast anyway.
yeah, I don't know. I'm quite happy to like not see them till the end of the show, and it's Gandalf rocks up and he's like, "Oh, you've settled," and they've start like it's the early starts of the Shire.
I get that, but I'd like a little bit of like some hobbits going to find where they decide the Shire is. You can have more fun with hobbits than basically anyone else because they can just do mischievous little shit.
There's just I worry because we're gonna get to a point where the wizards are gonna next season. I would imagine they're gonna get be much closer connected to the main story that's going on. The hobbits are always going to be this outside thing that I like. We're just going to get to see them wandering some more, and it's like cool. We've already seen that. Like, they're cool. Don't get me wrong. I love the Shire and I love the hobbits, but like for this story, I'm just so disinterested in watching them wander around while there's hell on earth breaking out. It's just
Fair.
that's just. But I like how they wrote like the way that they have left.
Yeah,
is a great way for them to end that story. And if they want to go back to them nearer the end to show what's gone on, cool. But like, I think they've put themselves in a good position to not be stuck with them kind of floating about, which is
I agree. I agree. Talk to me about Khazad Dûm.
Oh,
Because I think, forgetting about the bit that you might have an issue with,
okay.
I think your previous complaint of the king's gone mad with power because of the ring, how are we supposed to believe that the next king uses the ring and so on and so forth? I think they kind of told a story towards the end there that made that maybe a bit more plausible, with the kingdoms kind of under danger from other lords. That would be enough to make Durin maybe go, okay,
Okay.
a bit of extra power to like make it so I can get them to shut the fuck up might be helpful.
I don't think that's how they do it. I think because so there's two the Khazad Dûm. I had two sort of concerns. One was why they're releasing the Balrog. Like it's way too early for that. Two, what the fuck do we do with these rings? Because why would Durin ever put it on or pass it down? Because he's seen what it's done to his dad. Now the first one, the Balrog, I actually think I was very concerned's not the right word. I was unsure how they were going to deal with it because it did feel too early. I actually think they've dealt with it perfectly. The Balrog got awoken by the king. That face of evil, which, by the way, the CGI on the Balrog looked incredible.
Awesome. So fucking cool.
It's very well. I've seen someone frame by frame the face with the films. They have quite clearly basically taken what the one in the films, which I think is perfectly fine.
Consistency is always rewarded.
They've obviously just with tech now, the smoke on the back that kind of gives the element of the wings much better.
Good.
Yeah,
so fucking cool.
So like it just looks cleaner and is so impressive.
And
I will say
the fire whip or whatever the fuck it's called coming up over the top and grabbing Durin.
Just like it did with Gandalf. Yeah. I was like, really?
Oh, that's a very cool symmetry.
Obviously, he's got his one move that he always uses. It's a boss. They have their
they have that one move that your headbutt monitor trying to dodge.
It's like Elden Ring. You learn their skill set and you dodge them correctly. But I did like how they told that story of King Durin, kind of that facing that evil suddenly snapped him out of it. And the story between like Durin having to face his dad and him being like, are you strong enough to actually cut down your own father? And he's like, no.
Some powerful fucking acting in there. Really fucking good.
We've said it all season, but like some of these monologues that the dwarves have had and like the moments of the script have been so well written.
This show is always at its best when it's actually two people interacting like people, and they kind of make the fantasy setting secondary.
Yes.
And make it a conversation between a father and a son, or in the case of Calimbrimber and Anatar, an abuser and an abusee.
Yeah,
Like
but
these kind of human moments are the best bits in the show every fucking
yeah.
time.
Also, like him just jumping at the Balrog with an axe, just taking its sword like head, like what an epic way out.
So badass.
But then this kind of leads me on to the issues we have going forward with the story of the dwarves. Twofold. One is, and this is like revolving around Durin now being king.
Mm-hmm.
One, why would he ever dig deeper? Because he knows the Balrog's there now.
Is it supposed to be him that digs deeper?
So technically, it's during the 6th, and he's during the 4th. But obviously, with the way they're condensing timelines, we don't know if it in this world it will be his grand, or if it would be him, because we don't know how the timelines are kind of blending there.
Yeah.
Because also in the books there is no King like during the 3rd, during the 4th. It's just King Durin, and he's meant to be seen as immortal because every Durin that takes over looks identical to him.
So the whole idea is like all the dwarves know he's not really.
So
immortal,
there's
no
it's never actually said in the books, from my understanding. It's kind of this like the myth is that he's immortal. Some people go with the fact that, oh well, he just always looks the same, so it's no one knows. But besides that, like the Balrog, them knowing the Balrog is there is like a small issue of like, why would that not be passed on for generations to be like, look, this is why we don't dig.
Yeah.
The other,
I don't know.
the other is the rings,
Mm-hmm.
and I've said that previously. Like, why would he ever wear the ring, knowing what it's just done for his dad? Now it ends. The dwarven story ends with Disa being like, and the other dwarf, the lords have made donations. They want their payout.
Yeah.
This is the two ones that were mentioned were the ones that I thought would be in Khazad Dûm, according to the books, but it seems like they're still over in their mountains, which is fine. It's just where they're just explaining they're not there. I think, and there's also the mention of Durin's brother, who wants to make a claim for power, who we don't really. I think we got mention of him in season 1, like a mention of a brother. I don't know. Now, this is where they could essentially get round these kind of potential issues. If his brother comes in, happens to be called Durin, which would just be funny, takes over,
the crown, takes the ring,
shoves all those people out, because that's what obviously happens when like new royalty takes over. They want their people around them, not the ex-king. Suddenly that information about the Balrog could be lost. Him wearing the ring, passing the rings out, that suddenly that information of like, oh, the rings are corrupting, isn't going to be listened to. Like they could, I think them mentioning the brother's going to make a grasp for power, I think is a very smart. They know, like they've said that for a reason.
Storytelling wise, I don't dislike it. I, as a person who's watched this character for 2 seasons, will be very upset if I see Durin get usurped by his brother. He's also had to watch his father die to try and protect the kingdom. He doesn't want to hurt his dad. He just wants to help his dad see sense. And then his brother comes in, Mr. Big Dick, making the exact same mistakes his father just made, and he can't stop him this time. I would be screaming at my monitor each week.
Imagine they also have the brother be the same actor who played King Durin, but they put him in like a younger dwarven setup. So he still looks like, what if they actually do that whole, he looks like, and he's like, what if I'm your dad and I'm your reincarnated dad as your brother. So I don't know.
No.
But I mean, you could have maybe Durin passes the rings out. Maybe there's, I don't know, some word, somehow there's the idea that I mentioned that maybe if all of them are wearing the rings, the corruption doesn't really work. Like it's like they need to all be making use of them because they were made together
Yeah, it divides the influence
Yeah,
of them a little bit.
maybe that is what happens, and then Joran puts it on and he realizes, oh, we just all need to be wearing these, and we are protected from that
Yeah.
corruption, and that's
Yeah.
like a makes sense. But overall, like we've said, we both love the dwarves and Khazad Dûm. The one place where they haven't failed with the sense of scale, they seem to have nailed it there. For I don't like what it is about them that they've nailed the dwarves. They've struggled with the elves, is what I've
Yeah.
noticed in this show.
Yeah.
But overall, like that end to that story was actually very well. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think they did a pretty good job of, instead of just kind of avoiding your very real concerns of the story, they've kind of redirected slightly, left
Mm,
themselves in a position where, yeah, it's not perfect because they are telling a slightly different version,
mm.
but they've left themselves kind of on the right path where they can make it closer
Yeah,
to what the fans would expect.
yeah. I think the problem we were having was it's like myself and fans know the direction of the books and we know where we're going to get to with Lord of the Rings. And it's like, oh, you're deviating away from that, not seeing now there's this maybe different track that
Yeah,
they could go on, but still reaches the same place.
exactly.
Um,
Should we talk about Numenor?
yes.
So I'm going to ask off for it.
Go
As
on.
we've established, I'm watching this as a fan. It's been a long time since I've watched Lord of the Rings films.
Mm-hmm.
All this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. The sword is the sword, I think, is the sword.
Yes, it is the broken sword, Narsil. Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
that is Aragorn, his great grandson or
Yes,
grandson. The
grandfather.
Yeah, well, it's his Aragorn is his grandson. It's the
Yeah,
same sword that he ends up with.
cool.
Did you notice that almost mirror but slightly different draw of the sword, the same way that Aragorn did it when he got it remade?
No, I can't say I
It's
can't say I did.
someone's
But
put
I
it side
saw
by
I saw the
side.
hand on the hilt, and I was like,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you noticed this because you're the kind of person that was not designed, was expected to enjoy this scene in the way of going, oh my god, that's the sword.
Yeah,
But there was a pause when she handed it to him that's kind of supposed to be there for the people who know to nudge each other and go,
yeah.
it's the sword. Obviously, I was watching it by myself, and I'm like, is it? And then it all goes quiet for like 3 or 4 seconds. I'm like, oh, it probably is then.
Mhm.
That's where I'm supposed to lose my shit and start whooping.
So the I liked. Obviously, I've sometimes I'm like they've learnt too much on the films, but actually they're mirroring Aragorn had done it the same way. Makes
Yeah.
sense. They are the same bloodline. They are very much similar characteristics of the same people.
Yes.
But yeah, that sword is uh given obviously Elendil's given to here. I don't actually remember how he gets in the book, if it's handed down through his family or it obviously ends up with him. He then passes it to
Isildur.
Isildur, and Isildur's the one that uses it to cut off the one ring off Sauron,
Yeah.
which we see at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings when they do the
Yeah.
little, and then it sits,
Flashback before
yeah,
catching up.
then it sits broken till it's remade. That is the same sword, and it was very cool to have that finally be like, here it is, it's
Yeah.
here.
Um, but we've jumped a little bit ahead in like how they've wrapped up
That's
Numenor.
well, yeah.
So as a result, which is, by the way, so in character in my opinion for Farazon in the way he's portrayed in this,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of go, she cheated the test, and we are now making you all heretics and making your religion illegal. What I think they've done a very good job of this season
Mm.
is in the political landscape of Numenor.
Yes.
It's kind of fair the way they've presented it as the people don't trust the Queen. They've gone, fuck you, we want someone else. That is actually completely fair. You should overthrow the people in power if they're not serving you.
Correct.
Um, Obviously, we as an outside observer know Farazon is no better and is a piece of shit. The people don't know that.
Yeah.
But this is like the first warning sign the people of Numenor should have that he is like dangerous. Is when, based on their own like law, tradition, and religion that, as we've established, isn't that far removed from being very common practice,
Yeah.
for him to go, oh, it's bullshit, your religion is now illegal, That's got to set off like a fucking red alert. Like, could you imagine if someone like we were saying last week about imagine if someone got crucified and then 3 days later woke up, we'd all be going to church on Sunday. Could you
And then the
imagine
day after they go,
that?
church is illegal.
Yeah. Then the next Sunday, you go back to church again because you're like, holy shit, Christianity's real. You get the fucking army kicking down the front door going, being Christian is now illegal. Like, that would be insane.
Yeah.
Genuinely insane.
The
So,
highlights
yeah, like,
an issue that I mentioned, I think it was like either the last episode or the one before when this started kicking off. I was like, this is all ramped up very quickly. And
yeah.
again, we've said it many times, the show is condensing things. In the books, my understanding is this is a very slow build up with Farazan making like political moves, building that like, or seeding that tension to then put himself into position, like basically being like, look, the faithful aren't doing anything to help you. And over time, it's like, and then he gets himself into a position of power. And then eventually there's tension and then things come to a clash. This is very much gone, oh, I'm now forced myself into power. There's tension. We're fighting straight away. You're illegal.
Maybe the real world has kind of shown to the writers that this stuff could happen very quickly.
So yeah, potentially. I like the fact, I don't know if you picked up on this. So when he gathers the main faithful people, once again the census scale, about 10 people to represent the whole faith. Like,
you're really worried about this religion. There is 6 men in church.
He's like passes him a piece of paper, and then it's like basically the proof is Halbrand was Sauron. The queen helped Halbrand, therefore she's only succeeded and she's in bed with Sauron, who's this great evil. Which they all know who he is because of Morgoth and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Did you realize that he got that information from the faithful orb? That was his vision, and
that's what I thought it was.
which is funny to go to the faithful and be like, nah, he's evil. How did you get that information? Oh, well, I used your source of information, and it told me that. But he writes it on a scroll as if it's like been sent to them from far, like from across, warning them or something. Like he presents the information in a way of like, look, I've just been warned that Halbrand was
and here's the
Sauron.
thing, like, I'm all for the separation of church and state. Like, that is inherently a good thing. Religion shouldn't dictate your political world. But Farazan is not a better option than the church, I fear.
No. My understanding from people that have read the books, he will get his time. I'm sure we can look forward to that. Elendil
get his time.
Oh, I swear to God, I hope next season either Isildur, which we'll get to that little bit, like either Elendil or Isildur best be the one that kills him.
For sure.
But yeah, Elendil gets the sword off Queen Muriel, who's like, I can't flee. Who am I? Like, if I flee in front of my people, I'm not showing any. Which, fair. She's standing strong, making a point.
It's one of these weird ones where, like, storytelling wise, the big leader king person always has to do that. But at the same
go
time,
down with the ship.
They never do that.
No, they don't. But they're gonna go down with the ship. Also, I forget while we've been watching the show, but like this is all just happening in the capital of Numenor. Yeah. So Elendil's fleeing to the coast where his brother is. My understanding where his brother is.
The farm boys have not got a clue what the fuck is happening in the big city right now.
They'll have some probably murmuring, but my understanding is where his brother is. I can't remember the name of the city they mentioned or town, but that is a more faithful place. So a theory of people are thinking maybe next season is we'll get like a clash of Kingsmen with faithful.
That could be cool.
Which could be Elendil goes, him and his brother come back, and it's like a show of force the opposite side, which would be pretty cool, especially if his son arrives and we've got that. Something. Go on.
In the world of Middle Earth,
yes,
do these people have any evidence God exists? Because we know in the mythos that their God does exist.
So
Do they have any actual evidence, or is it like genuinely how we would view Christianity, where it is absolutely faith
no,
based?
well, I would say the elves essentially know for fact. I think some of the oldest elves have probably met or been like the ones that were gods. Obviously, Tom Bombadil and the wizards, all that, all they know is yes, there are fucking gods. We've. As for your average man, I imagine the ones on Numenor that are faithful, because obviously years ago they were close with the elves, they would believe it to be true, and
But there's maybe none of them around who are alive who
it's diluted down. And then your
got ya.
average man in Middle Earth, probably some have faith there is a god, some probably don't really like. Some of them probably
Because this
see
is
the
my thing.
elves as gods.
In a mythos where you know gods absolutely exist and you've got like immortal beings and stuff, it's really difficult to pass out a human life in that way and go,
Hmm.
okay. Like I feel like I don't believe religion should ever be about hedging your bets. You either believe or you don't. People who hedge their bets with religion are insane. But I feel like on Middle Earth, you absolutely should be hedging your bets with religion. You're like, I don't know. I know that an elf who's lived for like 3,000 years exists. There's a decent chance there's something more powerful than that. Did you like this Sauron dude that we all know for a fact exists and is real? Is like basically a god in his own right. I'm not saying
Mm.
I'd follow the right religion. Well, I would probably accidentally end up being like a Sauron follower. But you know, like, I'd be kind of like, as a lowly human in this world of such powerful beings,
I know what
I
you
feel
mean.
like you'd almost have to be religious just to be
I
safe.
think there's. I don't know if there's like it's been expanded on in the books in any sense, but I would imagine there's sort of a mix, because you're gonna get people that are like, do we actually believe what these elves tell us? Like, yeah, sure, they live for a long time, but is that not like, how do we know that's not just the extent of it? Like, how do we know they go to some mystical land? They go off in a boat, they might just die. Like, there's definitely going to be a certain amount of people that are like, there's just elves that are like the people. They're just those weird folk that live forever. They like
Yeah,
to
but
keep
I
to
mean, like,
themselves.
it's going to be a weird comparison, but we have like giant sea turtles who like live to 200-300 years old.
Yeah, no,
We
yeah,
don't look at them and go,
yeah, but
maybe
it's
they
an
have a
intel.
god.
I guess it's like an intelligence thing, right? Like, because elves have the same level, if not more, intelligent than men. Whereas, yeah, it's one of those where I guess it's like it's hard to ignore it, but there's probably definitely people that do go, not true. Or they just look at like the faithful in Numenor is more like they are faithful to the elves in the way of the elves rather than like a god. So I think
Got
it's
ya.
more a sense of like the Kingsmen are like, we don't like the elves, they don't fuck with us anymore. Fuck them and their ways. Like, we're not following their weird religion shit anymore.
That makes
Um
sense.
Now, from my looking things up about Numenor, in the books, and this, if they do this, this is obviously going to then be a spoiler, but it could be an idea of where the story goes to kind of calm the fighting between faithful and Kingsmen, because obviously that my understanding is that doesn't go on forever.
Got ya.
In the books, I think it's Queen Muriel or some queen and Farazon get married. Now, in some versions of that telling, it's like she's forced into it. Some it was like a mutual agreement. I wonder if they'll pit it as they do have a clash next season, and then as a way to she presents this idea of, we will marry, present a united front as long as you stop trying to kill and get rid of all my
Yeah.
faithful people.
Yeah, we will have a union that
Yeah,
unifies Numenorians with you representing the people who believe what you believe. I represent the people I believe. We're a union. I mean, historically, that's the kind of thing that would happen.
yeah.
In a fantasy setting, it also makes complete sense.
I
I
also could
kind of
see
like it.
them doing that. Then it's like Elendil's like, bitch, you're the woman I loved, and now you've gone and married the enemy. See you later. I'm going to Middle Earth with my son.
It's also like the best kind of drama ever. Like
Makes
that love where two people love each other, but one person's not allowed to be with them for whatever reason. That shit sells.
mm, So I think next season could be very interesting for the Numenor story. Um,
Absolutely. And kind of continuing the Numenor story, but more on Middle Earth
mm-hmm,
with the townspeople where Isildur's been living.
yeah, and fucking Kenan, whatever the little shit's name is, rocks
I
up on
mean,
a boat.
Farazan's son,
Yeah,
Clement. Is it Clement?
something like that.
Clement's the most disgusting of the
Yeah.
names, so I'm going to go with Clement.
He obviously rocks up. Hilda's like, "Holy shit, my people!" And then he's like, "Your dad's a traitor. You're not in charge anymore. We're here to do, and you all now have to pay a tax if you actually want to live here or get the fuck out." And he's just like, "The fuck." But also, I love that when he first saw him, it's like all of us are like, "Oh, it's this fucking British." He's like, "The fuck, this guy's here," and it's like that. Oh, what an amazing surprise to see you.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when he gets back to Numenor because obviously his dad's left, like fled to the outer coast. He's going to go
Yeah.
back to the main city, probably then be told to pledge allegiance to the king. Um,
hmm
Obviously, his sister's then going to go, "Holy shit, he's not dead. I've done all this because I thought he was dead. Now I feel like I'm in the wrong."
Yeah, I feel like he will return to Numenor. His sister will see the error in her way. She's already starting to lose a bit of faith in
Mm,
what she's fighting for anyway.
yeah.
Um, and then they will go. Things will get worse in Numenor while she just tries to knuckle under and like sleep in the bed she's made for herself.
Mm,
Then her and her brother will leave to find their dad out on the coast and their uncle, and then that might lead to the situation where you get that clash.
yeah.
You have the son and the daughter go out there and go, "It's got even worse. We've got to do something."
Possibly, yeah. I think there's going to be that family reunion that kind of then
Uh
so
huh.
like to then lead to them coming to Middle Earth and settling in Middle Earth, which it could be a case of they have the clash, then it's like, oh shit, we should go back and help those townsfolk that are now got Farazan's like
Guards
pressing on them.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So that I think that all together with the Numenor story next season, I think is going to be very compelling.
Yes, I agree.
Should we get
Um.
into the main
Yes.
exciting story of this season?
Yes. The
With
fall of a Region.
yes, um, I mean Celebrimbor and Anatar slash Sauron. Um,
I. There has been some great acting in this show this season.
mm,
A lot of it has been between these two characters. You know how I
mhm,
felt about the way they've portrayed like this abusive relationship between the two of
yeah,
them. Calibrimbor's kind of dying monologue to Anatar, Sauron,
mhm,
whatever, about how you're gonna fucking lose, and kind of angrily prophesizing. Obviously,
mm,
writing a prophecy about something that's already happened is quite easy, but to make it fit in the context of the world and everything, I think that is some of the best writing and acting we've seen in this show.
mm.
Because you see, it almost shakes him to his core a little bit as well.
And some
He's
of
like, I
like
kind of see what you're talking about.
and talking about like how he already is okay. Like he's like, it's fine, I'm dying because my soul's gonna blow to the east to a place where you can never reach. Um, all very Tolkien-esque writing, I would say.
Yeah,
It'd be wild if I told you that none of that is straight from the book.
really.
Yeah, they nailed. Apparently, there might be little bits, but like my understanding is that was all like fresh written for this, which they nailed. The Tol like that with the. This is the first time where I feel like the elves have finally spoken in that Tolkien-esque.
Yeah.
But yeah, that monologue. Also, so I knew kind of how his story ends with Anatar, like what his was going to become of him. It's a lot more brutal and savage in the books.
Oh, is it?
Yes, but they very creatively nodded to those things. Um, so in the books, I don't know the exact wording of this, but it's along the lines of um, on the battlefield of like Eregion, Celebrimbor was brought out and hoisted like a banner with like pierced with orc arrows. So essentially, they strapped him to a banner naked, dead, and marched him as they were taking over Eregion. Like brutal way to use the greatest smith,
Yeah.
and they lent into that with this. You had Anatar's just taking target practice at him,
Yeah.
and then torturing him,
try
but
and
like
torture the information about where the rings are.
yeah, and then with the pole arm and hoisting him up against the, obviously kind of imitating that idea of the banner. I thought it was so well put together. And then yeah, like you said, the speech where, and then he said the thing. He called him the Lord of the Rings.
While I loved the finale, there was one too many of them kind of moments. Don't get me wrong, like in between them it was great, but like
this one worked better than the others.
The Grand Elf and the Lord of the Rings, and all of that stuff. It just too many times it was kind of like them going, Do you get it?
Yeah.
We're telling the story.
Yeah, we're part of this franchise, we promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole monologue of him because I forget what the mythos around it is, but it's like normal souls like in the books are known, like they drift off to where death is in the east, and the elves always go the opposite way. So him basically being like, doesn't matter how fucking powerful you are, doesn't matter what you do to this world, you can never chase me down. You never are gonna deserve to be where I'm going.
I'm free of you forever now.
Yeah, I'm at peace. You will never be this savior to the world that you think you are.
And I foresee a tiny little thing destroying everything you build.
Yeah. Him obviously mentioning probably just a normal person, like not necessarily saying what we are like, it's a hobbit. A hobbit does that.
Yeah. It's a very good, basically he means something that you view as beneath you, which is everything, will be your downfall. Obviously they've played on the words so that we're like, a very small man, Frodo.
Yeah, exactly.
And Samwise. The many little men.
We then get the whole Adar getting betrayed.
Fuck that. Seeing Adar as an elf.
Oh yeah, when Galadriel
cool.
turns up and he turns around, he's got the ring on, and we get to see him in his full elf.
Now, was him deciding to side with her the ring restoring him to elf form and therefore giving him a bit of clarity? Or had he actually decided the best way to save the Uruk was to side with her? Or are we supposed to just leave that up to each individual's interpretation?
Yeah, I think you could probably look at it as like the ring helped give him some clarity. I think it was also he realized kind of what place they'd got. Like he'd lost so many. Like he kind of, the fog had cleared. Like the fog of the war had cleared from a bit, where he'd been so focused and he was starting to disregard the Uruk that he then realized again why he was doing this. But yeah, the betrayal of Orc Dad being the one to betray him when he brought. Well, it's like, it's like when he faced the Uruk, and he was like, well, you obviously knew he was going to try and then it showed him coming on a stretch, and you're like, oh shit, he actually killed him. Like the Orc Dad died. Like he died doing what Adar wanted, and then next second it's like, haha, stab it, and, and they go full Caesar on him. But it like the way they shot that as well, mirroring how they showed Sauron get stabbed by Adar and all the Uruk, like so well done that the same ends then met him. I then love.
We should have seen it coming. Adar being a brand new character and Sauron now rising, we should have kind of guessed that Adar had to go.
So I knew Adar was gonna die. I wasn't expecting him to die like that. I was expecting him to like face Sauron and finally get to be face to face, and like he reveals that he was Halbrand or something, and it's like this whole thing of like, I had the opportunity to kill you and I didn't, and it's like suddenly. But the idea that like Adar played into his plan this whole time, so well done. And then I think kind of didn't sort of shocked me, but didn't. But like when the dad's like, "Oh, we've lost so many people," and then Sauron's just like, "Stab, stop trying to go against what I'm saying," and you realize, oh, this is how Sauron rules. This is why the orcs respect him or fall under him because they're like, "Holy shit, this guy's like crazy powerful and
He
rules with
will just
fear."
kill us. Yeah,
Yeah,
he doesn't care about any single one of us. He will just cut us down if we don't fall in line.
yeah. Um, So then we get like a weird change fight with Galadriel, which I don't know how I felt about that. It was a bit. I honestly would have preferred like a less cuts, clean action sword fight because we both the same. We prefer not these like choppy stitching it together. Give us like a good one. Like
I am very much a give me one shot. In fact, complete sidetrack on that note. There's a horror film coming out at some point next year that is apparently all
I
shot
saw
in
you
one
tweet about that.
continuous take, and literally my response was one take. You say? I
There's got to
don't
be
care.
hidden cuts in that, but
But that's part of the game, isn't it?
yeah.
It's like you say it's one take.
But
Is it
like
actually?
I would have
Um,
much preferred. Like you've got Galadriel, who's meant to be like this badass elven warrior, and like yeah, she's kind of fucked up a bit, um, and she's still kind of, but like give us like an epic sword fight between her and Sauron, and I think it would have looked sick rather than this kind of like weird dance with him shape change. I like the, I get the shape changing. It's showing his deception and that he's
yeah.
been fucking with her this whole time.
I think there was a way to have the best of both worlds here. I
Yeah.
think you could have kind of cut this fight into two parts, had the first bit be exactly what you want, that clean
Mm.
fight, and have Sauron almost being beaten by her to show how good a warrior she is. And then when that's going wrong, you get like the what the fight kind of became, which is him using this deception, pretending he's Halbrand, fucking with her in all these
Mm-hmm. Making her
mischievous
fight
ways to
herself.
get the upper hand.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you were to split it in two ways, there you get the opportunity to have a really cool fight team, which you
Mm-hmm.
should always take, and also you get to lift Galadriel up as this insane warrior that you can't fuck with, but then
Yeah.
also show why Sauron was in power for so long and so dangerous is because he doesn't just fight you with weapons; he fights you with his mind.
Yeah.
And I think you could have really got a nice. I think they only just missed the mark on it with what would have been ideal. It was still good,
Yeah.
but when we can both sit here so clearly and go, this would have really nailed the exact point they were trying to make in a better way.
Hmm.
I think that's how they could have done it.
I just think they've not really had many like solid sword fights and stuff, which is kind of what Lord of the Rings is loved for, and like that epic sense of fantasy
Yeah,
fights. But yeah, it was very like I will say her backwards dive off the cliff. If I'm Sauron, he had plenty of time to just grab her. It was a bit like I would have much preferred her to have like I don't know kicked him away a bit and then just gone and full dived off a bit more sudden.
I do completely agree with you, but I feel like this is something that
It's
has
obviously just to
always been a
sell it.
thing for storytelling. Is just to build a bit of tension. You don't
Yeah.
want too much movement. You want the person to sit there in the moment with that like bated breath.
Yeah.
And when you look at it too closely, you do kind of go, well, they could have just grabbed the person. But the whole idea is they're like,
Yeah.
we're asking you to believe in a Balrog and elves
True.
and
True.
dwarves. Maybe just don't worry about it for a minute. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
it's not that easy to do because the human brain is the human brain. But I feel like in the time of the internet as well, when you've got more people pointing them things out, you
Hmm.
notice them more as well, instead of allowing yourself to go, what's she gonna do? And
Yeah.
not even realizing that Sauron absolutely could have just grabbed her and gone, give me the fucking ring. Because like, why if he had so much power that she was kind of like stun locked, why is he asking her to hand over the ring? Just fucking take it.
Yeah.
But that's not as dramatic or as powerful or as poignant, and it doesn't allow her to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like, no, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
there's an implied contract when you agree to watch something so out there of I'm going to accept that elves and dwarves exist as long as you don't do something so ridiculous that I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here?
I get you.
So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Him. But yeah. So I mean, Sauron got the rings as he wanted. We're probably going to see him distribute them. I
I'm
wonder.
excited for that. I want
I
that to be like a one episode where we just follow him for the whole episode and watch him like manipulate his way to the 9 different people he gives the rings to.
well, this is the thing. He's gonna select them in positions of power and stuff. I wonder if one gets given to Kennen, whatever the fucking son's called, like
Clement.
Clement. What if he gets one? Because we know what happens to the ones that have the rings. They become the ring wraiths. So it's like
Mm. Oh,
great end for him to then get manipulated by.
so each episode's been 8 seasons so far, 8 episodes so far.
Yeah.
We got 9 rings turned out. So they either do a really cool thing and give us one episode which is just Sauron going around infiltrating and handing out the rings, or each episode he hands out some rings.
Yeah.
And you have that be like Sauron's storyline for the entire thing is him traveling, infiltrating, give a ring, move on to the next place.
I get you, yeah.
What I don't want is him to do random shit for 6 episodes and then 2 episodes just start throwing rings at people.
At the end, yeah. Obviously, he also has Celebrimbor's hammer, which
yes.
obviously Celebrimbor didn't really use for making the rings. It's kind of hard to show using a big hammer. I would love if for making the one ring, he makes like we get to visually get to see him using that.
Is
just for
there
the visual
anything
aspect.
special about that hammer? Or
Yeah,
is that
it's
hammer just Celebrimbor's?
no, it's like crazy powerful elven relic.
Okay, cool.
Like
Cool.
it's a special elven smithing hammer.
See, this is the issue I have with Lord of the Rings. It's not Lord of the Rings' fault. It's a me thing. It's just like they'll have something, and yeah, they'll design the prop beautifully. But I'm like, okay, it just looks like hammer. It's not shimmering or shooting off firebolts or anything like that. Is it special, or is that just how the elves get down? Is that how they design their hammers?
It is a special. I think it was Celebrimbor's dad's, if I remember right.
Yeah, like, I believe you said to me before. But like, everyone has family heirlooms. Doesn't mean they're magical.
True. But I'd love if we get a shot next season of like Sauron in Mount Doom, using the fires of Mount Doom with like an anvil on a rock, and he's just there, just smacking it and making a ring.
Maybe they make that his entire season arc. He's literally just in Mount Doom every week, doing one step of the ring making process.
They make sure he's shirtless all the time for the viewers.
Yeah, no, I think there's some fun to be had for sure. But overall, really, really solid season.
Yeah, I will say
it definitely had its ups and downs, but I was really happy with it.
One thing with the elves, where they ended up was Rivendell.
Okay, cool.
That valley.
It felt very familiar, and they also changed like the lighting, colouring, whatever you want.
It's so bright.
To make it a bit brighter and more full of colour.
Yeah.
I was like, this feels like
them
Rivendell.
Yeah, and them also
that was
saying
the most subtle. Do you know what we're doing here?
Obviously, I know that like Elrond fled there after the fall of Region and set up and then mentioning that this place is protected by the rings. Rivendell was, and so was the one down where the boats are. I'm forgetting the name of that now. Linden. So yeah, I was like, oh, this is Rivendell. Like they've set that up nicely. But yeah, overall, I did love I loved this season a lot. And while I had my gripes, I do think it was a huge step in the right direction from season 1. And hopefully season 3 is that again.
I agree. I completely agree.